I got in an argument with a good friend of mine about 401ks, and he was talking about how much he thought that I should have a 401k, and I was telling him how much I thought that a 401k was more of a foolish idea, especially for people our ages. And basically my arguments to him were like unheard. He just couldn't understand the fact that the dollar is going to lose its value. And the things I told him, he just kind of dusted off. And I said, we have a national debt right now that our entire income tax revenue cannot even afford to pay the interest on. And he didn't seem to understand that. And I said, that means the government is going to have to print more money in order to pay for this thing. And he just goes on, the dollar is going to have more value. And I assured him it's not. It's just paper. The government can print it. That's what they do right now. That's what they'll continue to do. That's all they need to do in order to pay for it. But it's going to debase the currency, and it's going to debase all the dollars in everybody's 401ks to nothing. Then I go on to talk to him about different programs like Social Security and Medicare. Social Security is absolutely going to fail. We all know this is true. You cannot have as many people retired as many people working. The thing's like an upside-down pyramid. It's going to topple on top of itself, and that's it. And the government's probably going to be standing there printing more money to get that thing out. Medicare, that's going to fail. In fact, they said it was going to fail in 7 years. I think it's more like 3 years. Because basically I'm watching the cost of this medical equipment and medical services skyrocket. And I don't think it has that much longer. In fact, that's why I think they're trying to pass Obamacare so quickly, because they know that Medicare is doomed. And they will be printing more money for either one of those programs any way, shape, or form. They simply can't. They will not stay afloat versus what they're taxing us. There's no way. Also, these wars. What about all these wars we have to pay for? Well, they're printing money for that. In fact, that's why there's something called a budget deficit, because they don't have any choice but to print money. It's a deficit. That means that it's negative, and they will print money to pay for all these wars. What about more government programs, such as the food stamp program? There are so many people needing them right now. They're shutting down food stamp office locations throughout the country because they had to save the money from the days off that they're giving all their staff in order to pay people food stamps. That can even compound on top of itself with unemployment. What about welfare? And that's something just like food stamps. They're busting at the seams with it. They're going to have to print more money for that. Same with Medicaid. So we're in a lot of trouble. And when they print money for all this stuff, what's going to eventually happen? We're going to make people angry all over the world that are holding our treasuries because we're debasing our currency here at home. That's going to make their holdings, the treasuries that they're holding, worth less and less of purchasing power. It's just going to go down and down and down. The more and more we print, the more that money works through the fractional reserve, the more the bailouts work through the fractional reserve, their value in all their holdings is going to go down and down and down. And they're going to get mad. In fact, China the other week just auctioned off $34.2 billion, I think it was, worth of our treasuries onto the open market and on an auction. So they're already starting to do it. But if we make them mad enough, they might just dump the whole thing. And I believe it was around $800 billion that China holds of our treasuries. If they dump that onto the open market, they would cause a worldwide panic, and every other country that holds our treasuries would do the same. They dump them onto the open market, and that would cause a complete crash in the dollar and a complete crash in your 401k if you have one. So basically, I guess I'm trying to ask people, what are you thinking about doing for retirement? I'll tell you what I'm thinking about doing, and that's investing in things like land, purchasing a lot of land. I'm one who believes God's not going to make any more of it. It's always going to retain value. You can always farm it, and it'll be a means of a livelihood later on. I also believe durable goods, especially things in your trade. If you're a plumber, get good plumbing tools, or if you sell tires, invest in a whole lot of tires. Or if you sell spare parts for things, invest in a large quantity of spare parts, rather than just sitting here dumping money into a 401k. Instead of locking it in for the next 16 years. If you think the dollar is going to float that long, I don't really know what to tell you. Another good thing that's good to invest in is metals, gold and silver. They can make it illegal. They did gold in 1933. It's a good investment. If you're on a budget, I would just buy a little bit of silver and buy the rest in durable goods and things like that in case the economy collapses. But guys, I'm just wondering, because the 401k is, a large government thing, and I just wonder what kind of fools they think we are to invest our work and labor and our whole retirement future into something that's destined to fail, which is dollars. It's absolutely destined to fail, and they know it. They're printing it like crazy. It's almost like ruthless watching it happen, because they're going to hurt so many people in their retirement. We're in for a lot of trouble and a lot of hurt in our futures. And I certainly hope that our investments for our retirement years will be more in durable goods and things like silver and clothing. And another thing would be firearms. And let me make a side note here about firearms. I went to a gun show here in Texas recently, and there was probably about 10,000 people packed into something the size of maybe 3 or 4 high school gymnasiums, and the equivalent size of a high school gymnasium. And these people, they're just buying up these guns like crazy here in Texas. And I think that these guns are going to retain their value, because they had things that were, just 90 years old, 50 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old, and they're all these different types of firearms, and they're all worth something. So that's another good investment that you can keep locked away in a safe at your home, and then you could perhaps take them out and sell them later on for whatever currency we have at the time. So anyhow, I'm advising you. I'm not an investor, so you have to just take my financial advice just for what it is. I think a 401k is absolutely idiotic to hold, especially if you're in probably somewhere around 40 years old or younger. I wouldn't hold it unless you're about to retire and you already have tons of money in this thing and you're 50 or over. You're just shooting the dice. Hopefully it'll work out for you. But if you have a 401k now, I wouldn't put any more money into it. I'm not even keeping a 401k. I think I don't believe in the dollar. I think it's just going to go down and down and down, and there's nowhere for it to go except it's going to go to hell. It's going to go that far down. It's going to be zero, guys. And they're going to have to move into a different currency, and everybody's going to get screwed out of their retirement money. It's a very scary scenario, especially with Social Security failing, because you're going to have tons and tons of people who are going to rely on their 401ks, not Social Security, not having any means to retire either. So we're in deep trouble. So anyway, I know that this is kind of doom and gloom, but it's just the truth and reality, and that's all I'm trying to give you. So I'll see you next time. Appreciate it. Thanks.